Okay, so I just watched the debate between Dylan Burns and Jackson Hinkle regarding the United States providing weapons to Taiwan, whether this was an escalation or a continuing of the status quo, and whether the United States should be supporting Taiwan. Dylan's argument is that Taiwan should have the right to self-governance and therefore deserves support from the United States. They went back and forth on this, and to be honest, I am not swayed one way or the other. However, what did stick out like a sore thumb was Hinkle's slimy method of debating, and his over-the-top attempt to come off as some sort of tough guy. But the latter is purely stylistic, and for me, the substance is what matters. Hinkle made the assertion that a country that can't stand on its own, militarily, shouldn't be its own country, which not only seems overly subjective but also unrealistic. Burns pointed to the Israeli-Palestinian situation, presumably to get Hinkle to agree that Palestine's inability to fight off Israel doesn't rob it of its right to self-determination. Hinkle countered that Israel is only able to do what it does due to its support from the United States, which is a fair point. However, Burns then pointed to other situations. First, the Israel-Palestinian situation in 1948, when the Palestinians were completely dependent on the United Nations to prevent Israeli aggression. And then also in the instances of Cuba. Did Cuba not have the right to self-determination after the United States kicked Spain out of Cuba? Likewise, was it okay for the United States government to take Native American lands, simply because it had the power to do so? Also, did the United States not have the right to break off from Britain given that it was helped by France? Hinkle didn't really address these. He squirmed by reframing and not directly addressing these arguments. He also kept trying to go back to Dylan's original point about the current Israeli-Palestinian situation in order to avoid these other scenarios, which he knew he couldn't directly address. Hinkle knows he can't say he'd oppose Cuba's right to self-governance due to an inability to repel an invasion and occupation by the United States without coming off as a hypocrite, which is why he hides behind some garbage talking point about not engaging in hypotheticals, which is not all that hypothetical. This just goes to show that he's not arguing in good faith. I'd say he's a slimy, pandering, low-information leftist, but I don't think he's even a leftist at this point. As far as I can tell, he's full Tankie at this point. Here is an excerpt from the discussion.
In Gaza, right? I mean, that's exactly what happened, and that's why so many experts on this issue claim that this was actually a loss for Israel. So I do push back on this notion that Israel is some sort of a innately strong country that can overpower any of their neighboring countries.
Here is what Hinkle is omitting, or more likely, is too stupid to know. The United States frequently has the Israelis dial it back and tone it down. The low-information leftists or tankies or whatever these stupid people are, seem to think, or at least pretend to think, that the United States simply falls in line with whatever Israel wants to do. Now, while I sympathize far more with the Palestinians, given that this is their historical homeland, it simply isn't true that Israel has some sort of blank check to do whatever they want, especially when the United States is under democratic administrations, and Israel is therefore militarily restrained to a certain degree.
Because they wouldn't be able to, they can barely do so with U.S. support, with decades and decades and decades of U.S. support, billions of dollars per year, and they wouldn't be able to, there's no doubt in my mind, that they wouldn't be able to do that, and they wouldn't have been able to expand their country to all the settlements they have today if it weren't for decades of U.S. support. I mean, do you really honestly believe that if it wasn't for decades of U.S. support that they wouldn't have been able to do that?
I do think that they would not be able to do what Israel today would not look how it looks. It'd probably look closer to 1948. That's
so you agree with me?
Well, no, because my position would still hold for the Palestinians within Israeli territory in 1948. My position would still work. Is that those Palestinians should still be able to decide they shouldn't be made refugees out of their own ancestral homeland.
No, because the principal argument we had here surrounding Israel was that a country should not be able to stand on their own and be considered a sovereign nation if it has to rely directly upon another country for the majority of their military support or their economic aid. That's what we were talking about, and you just proved
Cuba?
my point.
Then we can move on to Cuba. Fine, for diplomatic reasons, I'll just say you're right, and we can move on.
My chat was about to get really excited. I was about to finish. You just made my point that if Israel, you said if Israel hadn't have had decades of U.S. support, it would look closer to what it looked like in 1948, which actually proves my point that we were having from the start of this.
Is occurred.
My point had to do with the fact that even in 1948, it would still stand that there would be Palestinians displaced by settler colonialism. Would you agree with that, right? And that's my issue, that shouldn't be decided just by the military force of Israel asserting itself in 1948, that the people of Palestine should be able to vote about their ancestral homelands, which they were being expelled from and turned into refugees.
It's not a matter of them voting. I mean, it's a matter at that point of international law and the disregard for it.
So it isn't just. So what you're saying is it's not just that a nation should be able to defend itself, or people should have to defend itself if it wishes to rule itself, and it should not, in that instance, it would be relying on other countries for support. That would be the international community getting involved.
No, that's just relying on international law, which is supported by what? Not the strongholding of other countries, not the military support of other countries. That's just the rule of law.
So it should be a law that no one follows because the UN is a paper tiger. Because under the scenario, there needs to be countries that go in to enforce international law. Without it, law is just a paper tiger. A law that is unenforced is no law at all. It's just pieces of writing on paper. We saw that play down in Yugoslavia, for example.
No, I don't think that you necessarily have to have military intervention to guarantee the upholding of international law.
You do not. So what do you think would happen? And by the way, so would you say sanctions is then a okay way to support then? If the international community sanctioned Israel, then that would be okay. But that would not be the use of other countries to prop up Palestine.
I think every non-military example of, like diplomatic means should be carried out before you are implementing sanctions that directly impact the citizenry of a country, or before you engage in military intervention. But anyways, I mean, we're kind of getting into another argument now. But I mean, I won that argument. So what else do you have for me?
The ones who have to declare victory and prove to everyone that they won are usually not the ones that do the best, right? Deontay Wilder, Adrian Broner.
I was literally explaining to you how wrong you were. And then you were like, I don't want to sit here and debate this for 20 more minutes. Man. And then I was like, well, I mean,
I beat Manny Pacquiao. I beat him. I beat Manny Pacquiao. I don't care what anybody says. I beat him. The judges were wrong. The judges.
I did. And then I was like, you know what? If Dylan wants to sit here and try to provide a new argument, then sure, I'll hear him out. But did I hear you out? And did you provide yes, I did. And did you provide a new argument? No, you didn't. And we're sitting at the same exact.
So are you saying, you had to secede the point that Palestine and the Palestinians in 1948 would need international support from other countries backing international law for there to be anything done about Israel. Without other countries using force, people aren't going to do shit. The state needs to use force to make people follow laws. If not, it's just writing on papers, social norms, and social norms are not going to dictate that Israel doesn't abuse Palestinians.
Dylan, the primary argument we were having was that a country should not be allowed to stand on its own without military, specifically we were talking about military support from another country, right? That's what we talked about from the beginning. Okay, so is the upholding of international law guaranteeing that, international law is upheld? That's not the same thing as providing direct military support for an imperialist country to, take over another
in many
sovereign.
Ways it is. Example is the Scarborough Shoal. China lost in an international court when it came to the Scarborough Shoal. They ignored it and kept doing what they were doing. So, but you want to know why? You want to know why it failed?
Be tried before you engage in military.
So, what would you do then instead? If military support is the last thing, what would you do when it comes in 1948, Israel-Palestine? What would your strategy as the chief? Let's say the UN is actually something at this point, like actually doing shit. Like, what would you do? What would your means then if it wouldn't be the military would have no involvement? What would your message be? Because I don't see any other option besides the threat at some point of military force.
I was respecting the will of the international experts who, were guiding the location of where Jewish people were to be guaranteed a homeland. Post-war homeland. I would have respected the will of that international community that were alleged to have been experts on this, that was made up of also, I believe, 2 members from the United States, which said that Palestine should not be the explicit guaranteed homeland of the Jewish people. I would have respected that.
And do what about it?
I would have said that Palestine, if these international experts, the Palestinian people are all saying that Palestine should not become the homeland of the Jewish people, I would not have issued a executive declaration that we are going to form a new home for the Jewish people in Palestine.
Okay, so talk is one thing, right? Neville Chamberlain talked a lot, and what happened?
You just asked me what I would have done.
And you said you would have said this, and you would have said that, and you would have said this.
No,
and
I
this
said I wouldn't have guaranteed an executive declaration which guaranteed the Jewish people homeland in Palestine. That's how they were guaranteed their homeland in Palestine.
So are you talking about the United States presidential, not the Balfour Declaration?
I'm talking about the U.S. support for the Balfour Declaration.
Okay, the U.S. support for the Balfour Declaration. So that would have happened with or without the United States. That was done in 1917 as a way. It was actually anti-Semitic.
Nope.
Wait.
Nope.
It was anti-Semitic.
No, I'm saying it wouldn't have. I'm saying it's questionable as to whether or not it would have happened without
the British
US
did it.
support.
The British did it. And
they
propped it.
Support, right? You needed everyone.
You did not need U.S. No, you did not need, because the thing is, we had the Sykes-Picot Agreement. We had the McMahon and Hussein.
Dylan, think if you had U.S. force, a competent executive branch that would have done exactly what we did in Iraq, right? You sway member states to support your foreign policy aims, and you would have gotten them to not support the effort to create a homeland for the Jewish people in Palestine. But I don't even know how we got here, because we were initially talking about whether or not a country could stand up for itself based on their lack of military armament coming from another country. And you literally made the claim. That Israel would be able to stand up for itself and expand its own territory without direct support.
Right now, yes. In 1948. Wait.
Dylan,
yes, but that was what I was talking about. Then we moved it.
You're looking at this in an isolated situation.
Fine. Can we move on to a different example which doesn't have your problem with it?
Totality of history.
Can we move over to look? Okay, then let's look at totality of history. Cuba. It was 1898. Cuba, American-Spanish War, right? After the American-Spanish War, there was a lot of discussion about whether Cuba would become an American state, its own thing, or whatever, right? Now, let's say you or whatever, anybody in the world, and you see the United States say, you know what? Yeah, Cuba's a state now. Cubans, obviously, many of them would not be happy. Maybe they revolt, but if we just swiped away the Spanish military, there's not much they can do. So let's say the Americans beat the shit out of Spanish rebels, just like we beat the shit of native rebels multiple times. Would the might make right argument apply there, or we could just move over to native tribes in the United States?
So you literally said that Israel today would be able to exert their dominance across Palestine.
Okay.
You said that at the start of your statement, you just said that, yes, you believe Israel would be able to currently, as it is today, exert their dominance across Palestine, right? That's what you said.
Yes.
So I would question, what arms does Israel have to do that are not directly provided by or funded in part by the U.S. empire?
Well, number one, if we stop funding them, that doesn't make all their arms disappear, right? They still have guns that we gave them before, but it's not just us.
No, I understand that. I'm not a fucking dumbass, you piece of shit. I'm saying in a hypothetical situation, you're saying that Israel would be able to do this without U.S. support.
Yeah.
But the U.S. has provided support for all of this stuff. That's my
now we're talking about RIE going forward. Okay.
That's my argument.
Can we move on to something else, or do you want to keep yelling about this?
No, I'd love to move on. You were the one who wanted to continue talking about this.
Now, could you answer my question about Cuba?
I'm going to be honest. I didn't care what you said because I was going to push back on that, so I went and got water. You want to say it again?
Okay. In 1898, we fought the Spanish, right? And we beat them pretty bad, right? The start of that war is still hotly debated today. And after the end of it, there was two debates in the United States, what to do with Cuba and what's to do with the Philippines, because those were the two pieces of territory we were able to wrangle from them. Obviously, the Philippines never became a state, and that was never even up for debate. It was going to become America's biggest and most pronounced. A lot of people say this is the start of American colonialism overseas. I disagree. I think it started before, but it's one of the most cited examples. But Cuba Many Americans actually wanted Cuba to become a state. And to be honest, there's not much Cubans could have done to stop that. We just obliterated the Spanish military presence in Cuba, which stopped Americans from going in. So the Americans go into Cuba, we move Spanish soldiers. The United States, let's say, they declared Cuba as a state now. Many Cubans don't like that. Is the fact that they can't push out the Americans because they don't have the means to do so at that point, and let's say 20, 30 years passes, we're occupying that. Is that a righteous or okay occupation? Should the international community do nothing just because might makes right there and they don't have the means to defend themselves without the help of Spain?
If we had called them a state?
Yeah, we declared that they were a state, because there was a debate about that in 1898.
Well, did they become a state?
No, I'm asking in the scenario that we did declare them a state. We were like, they are a state. And the Cubans obviously would not be happy about that. Then what?
They never became a state.
Yes, I'm asking. Okay, I know Cuba's not a state. But I'm saying in 1898, after the Spanish-American War, when that debate was going on.
But Dylan, I literally just spent like 20 minutes talking to you about a real-world example with Israel and Palestine.
We're moving to a
now
hypothetical.
You engage in hypotheticals
because you can't engage with the hypothetical.
Wrong,
okay.
So you want to engage in hypotheticals.
What do you mean it was proven wrong?
This actually was one of the debate tactics. When I was prepping for my debate with Vosh, this was one of the debate tactics that everyone told me not to engage with, because everyone said, when Vosh begins engaging in these hypothetical scenarios, you need to turn it back to the real world example.
That could really happen.
The real world example.
This is a real thing that could have happened.
Are not material,
but
Dylan.
It was material. There was an actual debate about it, right? So my question to you is,
Jackson is simply weaseling his way out of having to admit that his standard is complete bullshit, and is nothing more than some ad hoc excuse to side against the United States, which he always seems to find a reason to do so, because he is disingenuous.
Last question, since you're
infrared is rising.
Let me ask you: why are you funded by pro-Assad lobby groups? Why are you funded by pro-Assad lobby groups? You're funded by pro-Assad lobby groups. You accepted an award named after anti-Semites. Named after anti-Semites. You accepted an award made by anti-Semites. Made by anti-Semites, and you accepted it. You are funded by pro-Assad lobby groups. You accepted their money. You accepted their award.
One in the chat.
You accepted funding.
Rising.
You are so fucking stupid.
Tankies are rising.
Why are you so
I see
stupid?
Only ones in the chat.
Wow, look at your chat. Your chat agrees with you.
Only ones in the chat. Tankies are rising.
Okay, chat, spam Omegalol if this man needs Jesus.
Only ones in the chat.
Spam Omegalol if he needs Jesus, okay? He needs Jesus Christ.
Only ones
Look
in the
at him.
chat.
All of them think you need Jesus. I'll convert you. I know a pastor who can convert you and bring you to God, which you most certainly need. Jesus, amen. Save this boy from his damnation. From his damnation. From his damnation. Oh, amen. Jesus Christ, save this boy from his damnation. Save him from his ways, from his pro-Assad lobby group money taken as he takes awards from anti-Semitic awards. Oh boy, he loves it. He loves that pro-Assad lobby group. But why'd you take that Assad money? Why'd you take the Assad money? Why'd you take the Assad money? Why'd you take the Assad money? Why did you take the Assad money? Why did you take the Assad money? Why did you take the Assad money? Why'd 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 you accept the award from an award funded by pro-Assad lobby groups, and it's named after a journalist who worked for an anti-Semitic news organization called Press TV, which is also the official arm of the Iranian government. Their official news organization. And you want to know something about Press TV? They have talked about how Jews steal African babies for their organs. They have said terrible, terrible things about Jews. They have questioned and platformed Holocaust deniers and questioned the Holocaust. Why did you accept that award? Why did you accept an award from such disgusting people? Why would you do that while claiming you care about civilians and you accept their money from people who support those with blood on their hands? And you won't answer my question because you know you took the fucking money, because you tell other people they sell out while you sell out. You claim to say AOC sold out, yet you sold out. You accepted that money, and you're talking over me because you can't accept that. You can't accept it. You can't accept it. And so you know what? You go home, you accept that more Assad money, you continue to hang out with your anti-Semite friends, and you have a good fucking time, okay? Maybe you can talk about how the Holocaust didn't happen, just like the award you accepted from a news organization named after those who worked for Press TV, a Holocaust-denying news network that works for the Iranian government, while you claim not to sell out. Okay, that's enough of that. I hung up. He'll call it a debate win, but he just does the infrared rising fucking bullshit, okay? These people don't know what they're talking about when they talk about foreign policy. They have no clue. And he says that AOC sold out when he literally sold out to pro-Assad lobby groups. We can talk about this right now. And he talked over me because he doesn't want to talk about this. But he did accept money from pro-Assad lobby groups. That's a massive claim. Did I substantiate that claim?
Ashamed to show his face moving forward.
Let's see if I can find this. By the way, when he accepted to debate me, I didn't think he would. That was the worst decision of his fucking life. He looked like such an imbecile. He couldn't substantiate basically anything he said and basically just made an argument of might makes right. I don't understand how he can claim to be left-wing and then make might makes right arguments. If you cannot get independence on your own, then fuck you. What does that say about Native Americans? What does that say about Catalonians? What does that say about Kurds? What does it say about any people who wish to rule themselves? Okay? Let's see if I can find this tweet I'm talking about. Let's see if I can find this Jackson Hinkle tweet. Okay. Anybody got the? Yeah, this is the organization I'm talking about, but I'm trying to find my thread where I tore it apart and talked about why this award is absolutely god awful, and they give you money. We know they give you money, and it's funded by pro-Assad lobby groups. And he accepted this award while claiming to not have sold out. You want to know who this journalist is? This journalist died. Very sad. But you know what she did? She worked for Press TV. The same Press TV, which has claimed on multiple occasions that the Holocaust didn't happen, that the Jews like abducted babies to like sacrifice organs and like push these terrible anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. And Press TV also so happens to be what?
A Kurd is a Kurd.
It also so happens to be an Iranian state-owned news and documentary network. So it is an Iran. It's the arm of the government of Iran. Okay, let's go through this quick. Okay, so he has been calling me out for a while, right? And he doesn't talk about this, but let's dig down into it. Okay. So Irrelevant rolled in for it, and I rolled Hinkle. Okay, we should be the tag team. Okay, they can only get back their honor in a tag team between me and Irrelevant. People like Dylan Burns have nefarious reasons for pushing talking points that they push. Everything is a conspiracy, huh, Jackson Hinkle? People can see who supports my work. Besides some video game sponsors, it's 100% viewership back. Can you say the same? Recently, you announced with joy that you had been awarded and accepted I can never pronounce it, but it's like the Serena Shim Award for the uncompromised integrity in journalism. It's named after Serena Shim, a journalist who died in 2014. Very sad. While working for Iran's state-owned news outlet, Press TV. The outlet has a long history of pushing anti-Semitic remarks, Holocaust denial, and messages beneficial to the Iranian government. Once in 2009, they published a 100% false report that Jews were harvesting the organs of Algerian children. They gave a platform to David Duke, who, for those who don't know, was the former Grand Wizard of the KKK, to say that America is totally in the hands of Zionists. They would platform him multiple times. Press TV claimed that Jews and or Israel were behind the attack on the Charlie Hebdo office in Paris, the creation of ISIS, and the 2011 attacks in Norway that left 77 people dead, and the 9/11 terrorist attacks from the ADL. I could talk about how Press TV tried to connect Israel to the development of COVID-19 or any other number of incidents. Moving on from Press TV, the award in question says that it honors non-mainstream journalists who continue to tell challenging truths in difficult times, and funds provided by this award enable those courageous journalists to continue their work in an environment that penalizes them for the clarity of the vision. By the way, can I just say, a person by the name of Jimmy Dore also got this award. I wonder why, Jackson likes Jimmy so much. The winner of the award gets money in conjunction with the award itself, meaning that the organization helps fund the winner's platform through a cash prize. There is no transparency from the org on how it chooses who they award money to, sadly. You can look at who they have given the award to in the past. The recipients include Peter Ford, director of the British Syrian Society, which is headed by Fawaz Arkraz, Assad's father-in-law. I wonder why Assad's father-in-law would be getting this award. Vanessa Beeley. She met Assad in 2017 and described it as her proudest moment. Eva Barlett, who hailed Assad's fraudulent election in 2014, writes for Russian Today quite frequently, the same Russia Today that alleged that Jews controlled Hillary Clinton's campaign, and has praised and edited AK-47s and rocket launchers onto the backs of Afghan refugees, and has praised the North Korean government after a state-sponsored visit, and many more. What is similar between most of the recipients of this award, whether they be in person or organization, is that they support or play defense for the government of Bashar al-Assad. They function as a pro-Assad organization who gives money to those who aligns with that worldview. Now, tracking the origin of the money given to recipients is difficult to a lack of transparency. The links you can find with it is currently publicly available is to the Association for Investments and Popular Actions Committee. The owner of this organization is Kamal Obeid, who is a well-known 9/11 truther. Their treasurer is Paul Lundre. He had appeared on formerly mentioned Press TV, the anti-Semitic Iran state news agency, on many occasions and went to Syria to be an election observer in 2014. The observers called it legitimate democratic expression of the Syrian people. Richard I forget Richard, it's not Richard Mendez. Richard, what's his face? Richard, somebody will remind me, but he's this person online who does the same stuff. You know what I mean? Right here, you can look at some of the many totally legitimate elections of Bashar al-Assad. Medhurst, yes, Richard Medhurst. And this is 2021, of course. This individual, by the way, I could go in length about how each of these are bullshit. If anybody wants to challenge me on that, I'd love to do it. This individual repeated the claim during the 2021 Syrian elections, even though it was similarly fraudulent. The organization is open about how they lack transparency. It says on the website, we invite inquiries, but will not provide a list of sponsored projects beyond what we have described herein, except with the permission of the projects themselves, and only after a vetting procedure. I wonder why said organization doesn't want transparency. Let's go into that. Thankfully, though, you can find out more by looking, I dug deep for this, through the U.S. Treasury EIN number 20-516191, since it is a tax-exempt nonprofit. By looking at the EIN number and the IP address, you can see that the Syria Solidarity Movement has the same EIN number and IP address. This group is an openly pro-Assad, and the founder just so happens to be the first winner, Eva Barlett, meaning she funds this organization and then gave herself an award, which I gotta say, really jerking yourself off there. This is the same woman who praised Assad's election and the North Korean government, by the way, on a state-sponsored government visit to North Korea. This is the same organization that has done things like paid Dennis Kucinich $20,000 to make a speech in Britain about Syria. Dennis has a long history of making statements in defense of Bashar al-Assad. Records from 2018 show that the Association for Investments and Popular Action Committee has paid out large, decently sums of money to the winners of the award. Here's a great example. Max Blumenthal got $20,000 fucking dollars. $20,000. Oh my God. That's a lot of money. I could get through college with that type of money. If I was getting after, lovely pro-Assad lobby money like that, my God, that would be beautiful. Now Jackson Hinkle does not get $20,000. Of course not. He's not he's not like Max Blumenthal. He's not that big. I would be dressed for the occasion. But I am interested in exactly how much money he got from this. Fun fact, Dennis Kucinich eventually gave the money back to the organization after he was confronted about the source of his $20,000. At the time, he said that, this is from Dennis Kucinich, anyone who stands for peace must be able to remain above the appearance of influence. And here's my communist and CIA picture. Here's my CIA picture that he can use against me. And here's when it was made worse. And here's when it was made even worse to be
no
used
idea
against
how
me propaganda
carefully I had
purposes
eat
to
my chicken
dismiss
nuggies.
what I just said about
What do you
Jackson
need a
Hinkle.
suit for
The
Okay
person who
Buddy
calls
time.
out AOC for selling
Why
out
do you have a dark
before
wine
accepting
red
awards
suit?
like
'Cause
this.
I love
So
burgundy.
there you go.
Is it in a nice
Not
color?
only can Assad not Assad, but Jackson Hinkle not defend his positions
There, see?
at all. He's a
Think it
fucking
fits well
moron. But he's also
Wait, look, I got a
paid
brown one
and given
too. What's that?
awards to be a moron. He's given awards and money to be a moron from organizations that push pro-Assad interests.
A curd is a curd.
Named after someone who worked for an anti-Semitic news agency that just so happens to be the state arm of the Iranian government. So, who is above influence? Mr. Hinkle. Who is above it? The world may never know. But that's enough for this.
Anyway,